This is a quick review on factoring to help before we get into simplifying rational expressions. This is going to focus on factoring out the GCF and difference of perfect squares. So our first example is a binomial 2x minus 6. When you have a binomial, the first thing you want to look for is there a common factor? So do 2x and 6 have a common factor? They have a common factor of 2, so we factor out the 2. 2x divided by 2 is x, and negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And that's factored because x minus 3 doesn't factor any farther. Here we have 10x squared plus 5x. We look at the 10 and the 5, and we see they have a 5 in common. And then x squared and x have an x in common. So we're going to factor out a 5 and an x. So 10x squared divided by 5x is 2x plus 5x divided by 5x is 1. Be careful with those ones. You don't want to drop them. It's not ever going to divide and give you 0. It's going to divide and give you 1. Here we have a difference of perfect squares. X squared is a perfect square. The square root of x squared is x. 36 is a perfect square, and its square root is 6. So the factor pattern we learned for these is you take those square roots. Square root of the first one goes in the first 2 slots, and the square root of 36 goes in the last 2 slots. And then you have a positive and a negative. And that's the pattern every time you have a difference of perfect squares. So if you had, say, x squared minus 9, those are both perfect squares. So we would have x and x. The square root of 9 is 3. So plus 3 and minus 3. Here we have 8x squared minus 8. So we want to look for that common factor first. They have an 8 in common, so we're going to factor that out. 8x squared divided by 8 is x squared. Negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1. And we could stop there, except that x squared minus 1 is a difference of perfect squares. 1 is a perfect square because it's 1 times 1. So if that happens, we can factor a little bit further, x plus 1 and x minus 1. And that's it. Now you want to do your short little worksheet and check it before you move on.